You are listening to the Sanity Drive podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sanity Drive Podcast, where neuroscience meets mental health, breaking down complex studies, connecting them with psychological insights that can be applied to better our mental well-being. My name is Nosarime Abe, and I'm happy to be your host on this episode. Today, we'll be talking about something that is very important, and this is TGA, Transient Global Amnesia, more than 50 years after its initial description. TGA remains one of the most enigmatic syndromes in clinical neurology. TGA, although is considered a relatively rare condition, as most studies have revealed that its incidence is around 5 to 10 cases per 100,000 people per year. So anyone might want to ask, why are we discussing it if it's a rare condition? In this podcast today, we'll talk about TGA from both clinical and research perspective, and we hope to set some records straight to reduce panic and misdiagnosis, and also support individuals who may be at risk. So thank you for joining me. Joining me to discuss this very interesting topic and quite critical is Alexander Støkkan. Sorry, I'm sure Alex will bail me out in this and help me to pronounce her name more appropriately, and she will give a bit of a background about herself. Alex, you have the floor.
Yeah, I know my name is quite tricky to pronounce. So from the beginning, my name is Alexandra Støkkan. I'm both a medical doctor and a researcher, PhD candidate on NTNU, University of Trondheim, Kavli Institute for Neuroscience, Systems Neuroscience to be exact. My research is about a condition which is called TGA, and I enjoy growing tomatoes in the spare time.
Thank you so much, Alex, for joining me on this discussion today, and welcome to the call. Okay, so Alexandra, to start with, could you tell us what stands behind this mysterious shortcut? What does TGA stand for?
I love that you use the word mysterious, because TGS is actually quite mysterious condition. TGA stands for Transient Global Amnesia. Transient because it lasts up to 24 hours. Global because it affects memory in all its aspects. And amnesia because, of course, it's a memory loss. One of the symptoms which needs to be present to actually diagnose somebody with TGA is anterograde amnesia. It basically means one loses ability to create new memories, and when the episode of TGA is over, they have a black hole in their memory.
Great. Wow, that sounds quite dramatic. And so how do an affected person find out that they have it? Going through TGA.
Actually, it's mostly the people around who first notice that something is wrong. The person often starts asking the same questions over and over. Even they just got reply to it, or they don't remember the action they have just performed. Most of them also don't remember events from the past, sometimes even many years before. And clinicians call that symptom retrograde amnesia. Thankfully, when TGA is over, the past memories come back to the patient.
So I will imagine that they take a contact with a doctor very quickly.
Yes, they do, which is a great thing, because it's crucial for us to exclude other potentially life-threatening conditions, like, for example, a stroke, epilepsy, encephalitis, trauma.
So let me take a pause on this. Is TGA itself dangerous?
There is no easy answer for that one. For a very long time, we believed that it's a benign condition, but first and foremost, some of the patients can experience it again, not more than 2 times most of the times, but some of the people experience it multiple times. Also, recently we got some reports that it could potentially leave like a permanent damage, or not damage, but change in the brain. And of course, it's quite dramatic for the family and the patients themselves. And many patients experience long-lasting mild cognitive impairment afterwards.
So, who can get TGA? I mean, what's the predisposition?
Basically anybody. Mostly patients between 40 and 70 years old. It is extremely rare for people under 40 to get it. Also, people with previous migraine history are more susceptible to get TGA.
Alex, you are a medical doctor and also conducting research in this area. So, how do you diagnose TGA?
For a very long time, TGA was just clinical diagnosis, which means that there were no diagnostic methods like a blood test or a CT, except the symptoms themselves, on which basis the TGA diagnosis was set. It is, of course, still very important to take a thorough medical history from both patients and the witnesses, if possible. Of course, neurological examination also plays an important role. But due to the better access to MRI right now, we know that after TGA episode, we can see brain changes in the patient's hippocampus. To be precise, a part called CA1, which comes from cornu ammonis. We can observe a small punctuate lesion with restricted diffusion. It is really, really tiny.
Wow, quite fascinating that such a small part of the brain could cause this much chaos. I know that CA1 and CA3 region of the hippocampus are implicated in most neurological disorder, and it kind of makes more sense to me as I try to explain the mechanism behind TGA, knowing that the CA1 region is very much essential for the context-dependent retrieval of memory, and sometimes this loop can be somewhat complex. So, Alex, is this one of the reasons or why you decided to conduct research on this condition, or what informed your research on TGA?
Yeah, that was one of the things. Another reason is that we don't fully understand what's the mechanism of how people get TGA. We know that most of episodes is preceded by a trigger, which is some sort of extreme stress put on the body. Either it's extreme physical exertion or psychological stress, but it also can be other things like pain, sudden temperature change. We had like a lot of cases in the winter, for example, or even like things like intercourse. Yeah, so that's a very mysterious disease.
So I'm going to take you on that last point you made. You said sudden temperature change and even intercourse. I'm interested in that. I wanted to give us a bit more information about this, Alex.
Yeah, it's like crazy that, as I said, it was like a huge wave of patients when in Norway we had like extreme low temperatures, and people suddenly went from a very hot place to very cold one, and suddenly they lost their memory. And there were also a few cases that people just after intercourse had a memory loss. Thankfully, they remembered who their spouses or their partners were, because I would imagine that would be quite scary if suddenly they wouldn't know who did they have sex with.
That was funny. I can really imagine that, Alex. Thank you so much. So, on a final note, I have two more questions for you. So, I want you to give us some final thoughts based on your experience, based on some of the things that you have been able to find out during the course of your research and also interacting with patients and the like. So, what are some take-home talks for us today?
Yeah, the message which I would like everybody to take with them home with, like, suddenly any of your family members, friends, or whoever starts to act confused and you are not sure what's going on, it's always right to take a contact with the emergency number. In the worst case, they're gonna tell you that it's fine, but like it's very crucial that it's not gonna get overseen. And another thing which I think it's very fascinating is that TGA is basically a natural model for both clinicians and neuroscientists of seeing what's going on in the brain when one part doesn't work properly. So those are my take-home messages. I hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. So before you go, one more.
Okay.
I want to get personal. You are
Sure, go for it.
and you're practicing, and you still decided to explore more, and you went into neuroscience research. That's quite interesting, and I just wanted to touch a bit about it. What made you? What was the drive, and what advice do you have for someone that is also practicing and wants to also maybe get wet in the lab with research?
Yeah, as both medical doctor and a researcher, I think it's very important that we bridge our knowledge, that it's neither gonna be like a pure research, but something which gonna have actually the real consequences. So I think it's extremely important for both clinicians and researchers to make sure that we actually cooperate with each other, that we exchange our knowledge. And you ask also if I have any advice for anybody, I assume with medical backgrounds, to what they could do. I would say, if you are curious, and it's very important to be curious when you're a medical doctor, in my opinion, then just pursue it. Take a contact with the closest university, check what they are researching on, check what are the topics, and find something you find fascinating and which you're gonna burn for, and just go for it. That's my advice.
Wow, thank you. This was a great discussion with you today, Alex. I appreciate this, and it's been quite an interesting time talking with you, and I appreciate that you have come to share from your wealth of experience, and I'm sure this will get to as much people as we can, and we hope that one way or the other we've been able to contribute to the world of neuroscience, where you are very much curious, and get people that couldn't really relate with some of those things to get more familiar with them and know what to do when they have or come across some of those things. Thank you again, Alex. And
thank you so much. It was so pleasant to I could talk to you and explain what my research is about. Thank you so much for that opportunity.
Yeah, and that brings us to the end of today's episode on Sanity Drive podcast on transient global amnesia. Again, my name is Nosarimi Abe, and I hope we have been able to discuss TGA, bringing its fascinating neurological phenomenon closer to us. Just to recap, we've explored the sudden onset of TGA and its temporary nature. And remember that knowledge is power when it comes to our brain health. And by understanding conditions like TGA, we can proudly say that we can respond firsthand, more calmly, and more appropriately if we or someone that we know experiences something like this. Thank you again for joining me on Sanity Drive podcast today, and be sure to share this episode with people who may benefit from it if you find it helpful. Again, this is Nosarimi Abe signing off from Sanity Drive podcast. Until next time, please keep your mind in full gear and your wellness on track.
Same drive, I'm on the same drive. No more doubts, I'm feeling alive. With every mile